Everyone asks you the same question. Friends, family, that voice in your head at 3 in the morning. If it's so bad, why don't you just leave? And here's the cruel part. That question makes you feel even worse because it sounds like the answer should be obvious. You leave, and that's it. Like walking out of a room. Except it isn't a room. It's a trap built so cleverly that even the strongest people stay stuck in it for years. And today I'll show you exactly how the trap works. Because only once you see the mechanism can you start to get out of it. And I'll promise you something up front. By the end, you'll stop asking, why am I so weak? You'll understand it was never weakness keeping you there. It's something else entirely. Christine is 34 and excellent at her job. She leads a team of 12. She makes hard calls before lunch. Nobody at the office would ever use the word weak to describe her. At home, though, she's a different person. At home, she apologizes for things she didn't do. She weighs every word like someone walking on thin ice. And for years, she's been telling herself, this time it'll be different. Here's the deepest sleight of hand. The question, why don't you leave, assumes that staying is a logical choice any reasonable person would reject. But the bond that keeps you in a toxic relationship isn't logical. It's chemical. It's built exactly like an addiction. And you can't reason your way out of a trap that isn't made of reason. To understand what holds Christine, look at manipulation's best-kept secret. And ironically, you'll find it in a casino. Quick thought experiment. Picture 2 coffee machines. The first gives you coffee every single time you press the button. The second gives you coffee sometimes. No rule. Which one do you end up obsessively pressing? The second. And every slot machine on Earth is built on this principle. Psychologists call it intermittent reinforcement, the strongest form of conditioning we know. A reward that comes unpredictably creates a far stronger attachment than one that comes every time. Now think about Christine's relationship. It isn't bad all the time. If it were, she'd have left long ago. Our brains are good at fleeing constant pain. The problem is that among the hard days come moments of tenderness, an apology, a perfect evening, like the beginning, a promise that sounds sincere. And her brain does exactly what it does at the slot machine. I got the reward last time. Maybe it'll come again. One more press. Only the button is her own life. This isn't love that endures despite pain. It's a hijacked reward system that uses pain to keep you hooked on hope. Have you ever sat through a bad film just because you already paid for the ticket? That's a thinking error we all share. The sunk cost. The more you've invested in something, the harder it is to walk away, even when walking away is the wise choice. Now picture sunk cost, not on a 2-hour ticket, but on 7 years. A house bought together. Children. Everything you told your friends about how well it's going. Your image of yourself as someone who doesn't quit. Christine doesn't stay only for the good moments. She stays because she poured 7 years into this, and a part of her whispers, if I leave now, all those years were for nothing. It's a lie, of course. The years don't become nothing because you leave, they become a lesson. But in that moment, the mind calculates the loss, not the freedom. And there's a very human fear layered on top. The fear of the unknown. The pain you know feels, strangely, safer than the freedom you don't. Better the trouble you know, an old saying goes, than the peace you don't. Not because you're foolish, but because the brain is built to prefer the predictable, even when the predictable hurts. Ask Christine how many close friends she has today versus 7 years ago. The answer will surprise even her. Almost none. It didn't happen all at once. It was a drop a day. I don't like that friend of yours. She changes you. Visiting your family again? You're there more than here. I don't get why you need that night out with the girls. Each sentence, alone, sounds like care. Strung together, they're a strategy. Isolation. Because a person who's alone, with no support network, with no one to say what's happening to you, isn't normal, is a much easier person to keep. And when you're isolated, something insidious happens. The only person who still gives you validation now and then is the exact person hurting you. They become both the source of the wound and the only source of relief, as if the only person handing you water in the desert is the one who brought you to the desert. So when someone asks, "Why don't you leave?" the question assumes you have somewhere to go, people to return to, trust in your own judgment. The trap took all of those one by one. You're not weak. You were slowly and methodically disarmed. And here is where the shift happens. The trap is cleverly built, but it has a weak point. It only works while it stays invisible. The moment you see the mechanism, the slot machine, the sunk cost, the isolation, it loses some of its power. Because you're no longer a confused person asking what's wrong with me. You're a person who has recognized the system. Leaving today isn't the ask. Leaving a toxic relationship is rarely one big step. It's 100 small ones, and the first isn't the door. The first step is to rebuild one connection, the net cut off. One friend, one family member, one person you can say out loud what's happening to without defending it. Because isolation is the knot holding the whole net, and a single real connection starts to dissolve it. The second step, a professional. Not because you're a case, but because no one sees their own net clearly from inside it. A therapist isn't someone who tells you what to do. They lend you the clarity the relationship took from you. Robert Leahy, who studied how deep thought patterns change, describes this process as slow but absolutely real. The belief I can't live without this relationship isn't a truth. It's a brick in the wall. And walls come down, one brick at a time. Christine didn't leave the day she understood all this. She left 7 months later. 7 months in which she rebuilt one by one the connections she'd lost. In which she talked to someone who lent her clarity. In which she stopped asking, "Why am I weak?" and started asking, "How does this work? And how do I undo it?" The last thing she said to the friend who, years earlier, had asked why she didn't leave: "I didn't stay because I was weak. I stayed because I couldn't see the net. Now I see it." If you recognized yourself somewhere in this story, or recognized someone you care about, don't rush to judge. The good question isn't why don't I leave? It's what's actually holding me. And which brick can I pull out today? Tell me in the comments, which of the 4 threads felt strongest to you? And if this clarified something, pass it on. Subscribe. Every week we talk about things that genuinely matter. See you next episode.